Today I'm joined by Yvonne Burton, cross-cultural consultant, longtime Japan hand, and founder of Burton Consulting International, where she spent years helping American and Japanese business people actually understand each other. Yvonne has lived in Japan, traveled there more times than she can probably count, and this year she practically moved into Osaka World Expo, visiting again and again and again, camera in hand, soaking up everything from the pavilions to the people. Out of all that came a book, Osaka Expo Adventures Exploring Global Connection. And I'll let you in on a little secret up front. This is only book one because it turns out Yvonne had so much to say, she couldn't fit it into a single alphabet, but we'll get to that later. Whether you dreamed of going to the expo, never had the chance, or just love a good story about discovery and connection, you're going to want to hear this. Yvonne, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Oleg. I really appreciate you having me on and interviewing me. I'm really just excited that the book is out, the first volume, and to talk about it.
All right. Appreciate you being here. All right. So you've been visiting Japan for years and even lived there. What made this particular expo the one you had to write a book about?
So, when I lived in Japan, it was a long time ago. It was great, and I actually wanted to write a book about my experiences, but life gets in the way. But when the Osaka Expo was happening last year, I really knew it was something interesting and exciting for Osaka, which is the city I used to live in, and the region, Kansai. And I just wanted to share that with as many people as possible. So I went, as you've already mentioned several times, many times, wrote about it on my blog. And when it was finally over, I was just like, I have all of this content. I want to do something more with it. So that's how the idea for the book was born.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Next question I have is I have so many questions, I had to write them down. The title is Osaka Expo Adventures Exploring Global Connection. What does global connection mean to you, and why did you frame the book that way rather than a straight travel guide?
Well, the book, I wanted to frame it the way I did because it was about my experiences at the expo, but told through the eyes of my characters. I wanted people to be able to walk through the pavilions and get a sense of what the exhibits were like with having my characters talk to the pavilion staff of the different countries. They were using their English. They were, really doing cultural exchange and connecting with these people from all over the world. And I think that was so important. A regular travel guide would be, go here, go there, but Expo being a global event for a limited time period, it was more about showing how the world came together, no matter what's happening in the news or so forth. But in this enclave, in this special time and place of Expo, people were together, differences were left outside, and everybody just really was in the spirit and energy of connection, interchange, speaking to one another, learning about one another. And that's why I wanted to kind of create that as well in the book instead of just a travel guide about Osaka or Japan.
No, it makes sense. It's almost like you actually created the experience of other people who read the books of being there, just like you were. That's basically
Definitely.
the idea. All right.
Definitely.
The book is organized around the alphabet, so you got letters from A to Z. And this first one covers half the letters. Where did the idea of using letters come from, and what does it let you do as opposed to normal chapter structure?
Well, again, when the idea for the book first came to me right after Expo ended last year in October, it was going to be really focused on basic English learning. That's why the A to Z. But as I thought about it and started writing it, I wanted to communicate as much as possible about the event and again, the conversations and the theme and the exhibits. So I kind of changed it in terms of level, but I like the idea of exploring the world one letter at a time, one country pavilion at a time. So that's why I like the A to Z structure. And I wanted to also do this in a timely fashion. So I was writing fully the whole book, and I was like, this was going to take a long time. So that's when I decided to split it into two. The first half of the alphabet, the letters A through M, and then, of course, get that out and then write volume two, the remaining letters of the alphabet.
Gotcha. So it's not the letter M wasn't because of my last name starting with M, right?
Not this time. Maybe that's in
Gotcha.
another book,
Gotcha.
Oleg.
Next question I have is who did you write this for? The armchair traveler, someone dreaming of visiting Japan, business folks, all of the above. Who did you write it for?
Well, in a sense, everyone. And I know I can't please all the people all of the time. I get that. But it's for different people. It's, of course, for the Japanese language learner who's learning English, and it's for anybody learning English, but it's also for native speakers of English who are interested in expos, or who want to just are curious about the Osaka Expo. It's for people who just love expos in general. That's a whole world of people. I met several of them who chase expos around
Sure.
the world during the expo. So it has a little something for everyone, but it's also focuses on these two characters. I made them teenagers because they're curious and they're less likely to be embarrassed or they're willing to overcome that embarrassment of, speaking in their non-native language. So it's kind of for anyone really, and you learn different things. If it's not about the language, then it's about the pavilion and the exhibits, and if it's not about that, it's about, oh wow, global events are still happening in this world and they're important, like World Expos, and the World Cup just ended, and it just really shows how, no matter again what's going on in the world headlines, people coming together is important. People are still connecting and communicating, and people have no problem with each other.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it, certainly. The Expo's theme was designing future society for our lives. How did that theme come alive as you walked the grounds?
So, on many different levels, for Future Lives, we think of tech and the future, and some of the pavilions, just how they were designed and constructed, were just amazing. The grand ring that surrounded the main body of the expo was this extraordinary structure. The pavilions, the exhibits, healthcare of the future, technology for the future, and the theme. When you talk about the future, you also really have to talk about the environment and sustainability. And that was the core of this expo. It
Hmm.
was about designing better life for us, taking care of the planet. A lot of the pavilions, of course, incorporated that not only into their exhibits and themes, but the actual physical structure of the pavilions as well. So I didn't write much about the theme in the first volume, but that comes in the second volume because X will be for Expo because there are no countries starting with the letter X.
Hmm.
And in that chapter, I will talk about some of the non pavilion or non country specific related things, such as the theme of the expo, the the different kind of technologies that were available, the grounds which were beautifully landscaped and organized, and the cleaning crews that kept everything so wonderful. So again, back to your question, the pavilions, the architecture, the technology, really amazing things. And there was many people said that for this, because the world is so tech advanced already, that it wasn't such a grand like expose of something big that's coming in the future. But I remember writing about that, and I said sometimes the best technology is the one that will help us live healthier, happier, safe lives in the future. And you saw that in some pavilions like the Osaka Healthcare Pavilion. So yeah, all of that is included as well.
No, sounds super interesting. How many times did you go?
I went almost 40 times. I want to say
40
it's
times.
between
So it almost
38
sounds
to
so it almost sounds
40.
like you liked it over there.
I loved it. I loved it.
Absolutely. All right. What was the single most surprising or delightful thing you encountered that most people would never dream or hear about otherwise?
Oh, wow. See, this is a really good question. Again, everything was just grand to me because it was my first expo. So everything was just new and wonderful and bigger than, of course, I'd ever imagined. But
So
there
there
was
had to be
certain,
something that stood out.
a lot stood out. So the certain pavilions and their exhibits, and as I just said, that certain pavilions were actually the exhibit themselves, how they were built, how they were structured, and what they contained. So that was really wonderful. And there was um, a pavilion that was called Future City, which was more of a company based pavilion, a lot of Japanese companies in the region,
Hmm.
in terms of manufacturing, healthcare, all different technologies, energy, farm equipment, agriculture. And that pavilion was extraordinary. Future City, not only what those companies are doing and have in store for us, around sustainability, harnessing the wind power, and all of that. So I really, really love Future City. And I didn't write about it in the book. I'll mention it in chapter X in the second book, but again, it wasn't a country pavilion, and I just wanted to stick to country pavilions as my main chapters. But I will discuss a little bit about Future City Pavilion, this grand, incredibly huge thing that housed so much innovation.
Maybe we can do another video just on the Future City Pavilion.
Yes, I have some good videos.
Yeah. If a
So
reader
yeah,
could
that one was extraordinary.
if a reader could experience just one pavilion through your book, would that be the pavilion or would you send them somewhere else? And why?
Yeah, I'd send them to
Future City.
Future City.
Okay.
Yeah. It's again because it's so many different things and it really is future focused and it touches on all different areas. But this is very hard for me, Oleg, to pick just one. The German pavilion was extraordinary. It was all about circular design, all about sustainability. And I spend a lot of time in Germany, so I know a lot of what they were talking about is starting to happen, is happening now, and will only get more so in the future.
Great. As someone who bridges American and Japanese business culture, what did the expo reveal about how Japan wants the world to see it right now?
Well, I wrote about this as well because another reason why to me Expo was so important is, well, several reasons. One of them being Osaka and Kansai region. Everybody knows Japan and business as Tokyo, but Osaka, which is the second or third largest city, has a lot going for it. And they're really making a push to be a tech hub. And it started already and it's happening in the Kansai region. There's so much opportunity, new ground to break there. So I thought that was an important thing that it was Osaka and that region that was hosting the expo. And also with a lot of what's going on in terms of, dare I say, and I do not want to get political, nationalism here, there, and many places. Again, it was a way to show that Japan is very popular with people. So there are concerns about over tourism in the major cities. I get that. But there has to be a way to manage that better instead of trying to cut it off. So I thought with having the expo there, that was a wonderful way for them to say, we're really open. We really want visitors and we're willing to work out something,
Hmm.
right? And again, I know that's putting it very, very basically. But it's also showing that region and that region's economy and companies, giving them the opportunity to play more on a larger global scale.
Hmm.
So now that eyes were on Osaka because of the expo, even more eyes, those smaller to mid-sized businesses in Osaka and Kansai region maybe have a better chance now to do more global business. And that was Expo, of course, had different aims and goals, and of five main ones, two of them did have to do with economical reasons to not only attract more foreign investment into the area, but also to give SMEs, Japanese smaller and mid-sized enterprises, more opportunity to do global business. Because
Hmm.
while Expo was happening, yes, it was about the future and technology, but business is also a part of that. So there were a lot of meetings going on, businesses connecting in the pavilions. It was just really an incredible, incredible event on many levels and many opportunities that I hope that Japan keeps building on, Osaka and Kansai keeps building on, and the world keeps building on.
Absolutely. All right, so the word adventures is a bold word for a book about the World's Fair. What made it feel like a genuine adventure for you?
The newness, the energy, the discoveries, the architecture, the people, the everything. So again, my first expo, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but everything was just grand and wonderful. That came through in my writing with my characters. And we'd been through a very bad pandemic several years ago. And this was Osaka Expo 2025, Kansai, Japan, was really one of the first global events since the pandemic at the time that was completely open and free. Yes, there was the Tokyo Olympics, but that was during the pandemic and there were a lot of restrictions and Japan did a great job, but it was restricted because of
Hmm.
that. So it was kind of, we were all now just free to be out and to engage. So everybody from around the world were there. Japanese people were just out connecting more so than ever. So that was part of what made it so wonderful. It was just, we'd been so, in a way, restricted and fearful and have come through this really rough time. So this was a truly global separation and looking forward towards the future.
Yeah. Now, with millions
So,
of people dying, it's understandable that people would be concerned,
yeah.
and also it's great to see that people still put together these events and still move on. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yes.
You said you actually missed the expo now that it's over. What do you miss the most?
Well, for the 6 months that it lasted and the 40 times that I went, it became my life. So when I was at Expo, I went from morning to close in. And then, of course, I had to write about every visit. So I was always engaged with Expo one way or the other, whether I was on the ground or in a co working space writing or a coffee shop. So it became my life. I talked about it all the time. I got people invested in it to go. If they didn't want to go, gave people tours because I knew a little of this here and there.
Hmm.
So I shared it with people and just being in that kind of environment where it was so a lot of discovery, a lot of newness, a lot of fun, a lot of creativity um, that I really got excitement, energy living in that day to day. Of course, when that ends, you're like, oh, and these beautiful, incredibly structured wonders that were the pavilions and the grand ring itself, we knew that those would be dismantled. And because, again, Expo is very sustainable, a lot of that will be repurposed, of course. But it was this 6 month community space and time that when it was over, it was very sad.
Hmm.
The last day, October 13th, I got there as early as possible and stayed until the very last moment. And I just didn't want to leave. It became not only dear to my heart, but really dear to everybody's heart. But it was a part of my daily life
Yeah.
for six
Yeah.
months,
And I'm sure it's going to be with you for the rest of your life, considering
for
that
the rest
everything
of
was.
my life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was there any particular person you met, a vendor, fellow visitor, pavilion host, who ended up changing how you saw the whole experience?
Yes, standing in lines when I was trying to get into the United States of America pavilion, which is chapter A in the book, I was standing in front of a young man from Saudi Arabia. He's traveling around the world. He'd just come from the United States, from New York, which he loved. So when he realized I was from New York, we had a lot to talk about. And all he cared about was getting to the American Pavilion, which was extraordinary. Their rocket room was quite an experience. So people like that, just meeting them in line, yeah, the lines were long, but you can engage past the time. Hearing, especially older Japanese people, so excited, especially if they were old enough to have gone to the first expo in Osaka 50 years ago. But even just older ones, excited about learning about different cultures and seeing these new things because it's more affordable than, being able to travel abroad.
Mhm.
A lot of the pavilion staff, that because I went to a few pavilions many times, they were just extraordinary. Um, People, young people, older people, volunteers. But the person that was most incredible to meet and befriend, who became my expo buddy, was a woman, a Japanese woman named Michan. And we met on the train on the way to expo, and we just started talking
In English or Japanese?
Japanese.
Japanese.
And
You're
we
fluent,
just
right, Yvonne?
pretty much, I
Yeah.
could be better, but yeah. So we were just talking, and we from that moment we became fast friends. And she, of course, again, the passion and the enthusiasm for Expo, just like me. So Michan, and her favorite pavilion was the Indonesia pavilion. So I dedicate chapter I, Indonesia, one of the I's, Indonesia, to Michan. And we're best buddies now. She's a nurse, so caring, so wonderful. She would, yeah, Michan.
Sure. I got you. Well, that's awesome. You gathered a huge amount of material across many visits. How did you decide what earned the place in the book?
Great question. It was really hard, and it's still hard because if I put everything in the book, it would be like 500 pages long. And if I included all my pictures, it would be 1,000 pages long. But I didn't want it to be this colossal thing, because it was geared towards language learning. Ideally, I wanted enough pictures to help, tell the story, to help the conversations that I laid out. So it took a lot. That was a lot of work trying to select the right picture, and for every one that I chose, there was 10 that I didn't. And it wasn't a picture book. So again, it wasn't like 50 pictures per chapter. It's more like two or three or four. Again, if it really feeds or the story that the conversation that Mickey and Ichiro and the pavilion staff are going through.
The book features your own photos. How did you think about pairing images with your writing?
Oh, well, I didn't want to just have words and words and conversation. I wanted to have visual impact as well. And because I want people to imagine themselves there if, they weren't able to attend, I thought pictures would really help with that. And by creating my characters, Miki and Ichiro, and I did them anime style because that is very popular, not only in Japan, but the world over. I decided to then insert them into my pictures. So again, people could really see them, imagine them more so actually being there and having these conversations.
Sure.
So pictures, yeah, tell the story, help tell the story.
The expo is
Mhm.
closed, but you've written that the real story is what Osaka and Japan do because of it. What do you hope comes next?
Right. So the energy and the innovation and the just camaraderie and collaboration and togetherness of Expo, the real test, I think, comes after the doors close. What are you going to do with that momentum? What are you going to do with all the meetings that were had, all the connections that were made, not just people individually on their own level, but company level, country level, and so forth and so on. So the goals of the expo, sustainability, the business aims, I really hope that those are carried forth and that the opening and the invitation for business in the region really happens, and it is happening. Um, so, again, I don't want to get political, but especially at the time of Expo last year, from April 13th to October 13th, there was particular things happening in the world. And I think that Japan hosting this extraordinary event so well. I mean, they're legendary with their service and their attention to detail. They went above and beyond. It's a chance for Japan to, I think, be even more powerful or present on the global stage. So that all has to continue from the momentum of Expo. We just didn't have this fabulous thing, and you invited the world and you said, we're open and we're committed to this and we want to do this, and then it ends. That's just talk. So, what are the actions now? What are the programs that are being put into place? What are the opportunities being created? What is the collaborations that are taking place to create this, design this future society for our lives? Again, on the individual level, company level, country level, global level.
Gotcha. So, what is the one feeling or idea you most want a reader to walk away with?
This book, again, and I'm not the first one saying this. I think I heard it on um, John Stewart's podcast, or maybe it was Trevor Noah during the World Cup, that no matter what's happening in the world, and I also said it, countries are people. People come together. It's up to people to do what needs to be done to create a better future for us. Each of us have to do our own part. So, yes, it's a language learning book, English language learning book, simple in that way, but the implication is about opening up, connecting with people you would never think that you would have anything in common with. And things like Expo just shows that people are the same the world over. We all have hopes, we all have dreams, we all have ambitions, we all have sadnesses and joys, and we just want to share ourselves with each other, learn about each other. And a lot of things gets in the way of that sometimes, but countries
And,
are
and
people.
then probably show mutual respect to each other. That
Oh,
would be
definitely.
the most
And
important
that's
thing.
inherent. Yes. Because what and why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
That's the thing. You want people to respect you. They're just like you. Why wouldn't you do the same?
you're saying yes.
So things like not just global world expos or World Cups, anything where you come in contact with people who are not exactly like you is an opportunity to connect, right? So,
Absolutely. For someone who never attend a World Expo in person, what do you think is the lasting value in experiencing one through your book?
well, the very fact that you get to experience it through this book, through the conversations to uncover what the exhibits were like, through the pictures, to see the exhibits. So it's almost like being there. All right.
Great.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's something I want people to enjoy about the book.
That's great. That's exactly what I want if I'm not going. I've been to one expo in Canada and it was awesome. So I can totally understand your excitement about being in the expo. Obviously, it was a different expo, but it's definitely an event everybody I think should try to participate. And if they can't, then the best way to do it is to get a book like yours, without any question.
Yeah.
All right. The next question I'm going to have is the first book only gets us halfway through the alphabet. Without giving too much away, what can readers look forward to in book two?
Well, it's the continuation of the alphabet. It is Osaka Expo Adventures A to Z. So the letters N through Z will cover countries, the Netherlands, Portugal, Poland, Qatar. So the S countries, So the structure of the book is supposed to be one letter per country per pavilion, but some pavilions were so popular and grand that I really couldn't decide. So some letters, even in volume one, have two, but in volume two, S, because there were like 23 countries at Expo that started with S. So I picked four: Switzerland, Spain, Singapore, Saudi Arabia. So those are some of the countries. And another letter that didn't really have any countries was W. And in that case, I make a special exception and talk about the women's pavilion. There was a distinct pavilion called Women's Pavilion because, again, when you're designing for the future, women are a big part of that and the issues that concern women in particular. So that pavilion in collaboration with Cartier was extraordinary. They held a lot of events in and around women's issues and initiatives and just was phenomenal. So, yeah, there's some exciting things in the second volume also, of course.
And then the second volume is coming out soon, right?
Yes, the plan is the end of August, first end of first week in September. I'm working as hard as I can to get it done. So, yes.
But basically, definitely, we can say before the end of the year, the second
Oh,
book will be
definitely.
available. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely.
So one thing before we wrap up here is I wanted to thank you for taking the time and having this conversation. I looked through the book. I'm not totally done with it, but definitely I recommend the book to anybody who is even mildly interested in Japan, in
Thank you.
expos, and this is definitely something that everybody should look into. One thing that Yvonne hopefully will supply is also a bonus for some people. It's a digital bonus, and it'll potentially have a few little additional stories you're not going to find in the book, but it's going to mostly be pictures and maybe even some videos of things that are not in the book, obviously, and that would be a bonus for anybody who buys the book and then leaves a review. Then just mention that you saw the interview on YouTube, and if you just mention it, then Yvonne will get you the bonus material unavailable anywhere else. That's the only way you're going to get it. So definitely, I'd encourage you to buy the book. I'm going to buy the book, and definitely get that bonus material too. And so before we wrap up here, Yvonne, again, thank you very much for your time and bringing us all this information and your wisdom and your experiences. Where can people find the book and follow along with your work?
Okay. So, first of all, of course, the book I self-published, so it's available on Amazon, both as a digital book and as a paperback. And I've also created a companion workbook to go with the book, again, for the serious English learners, just exercises of varying types that on the conversations for comprehension, vocabulary, challenges everyone to do some independent research. One thing that was really important for me to do, again, focusing on a country pavilion per letter, many letters have multiple countries that were at Expo. So I wanted to make sure I included those as well. So in the workbook that goes with it, there's always an exercise for each chapter that deals with the countries starting with the same letter. And I encourage and invite people to answer the questions by doing a little bit of independent research just to connect more with those countries as well. So that's one thing. I've also created a Facebook group for people who purchase the book and the workbook, and you can have access to that once you buy it through QR code or the URL. And that's where I'll communicate a lot about my future plans for the book. It's to share certain things, but also to engage with the people who buy my book and read the book, and some discussion events and picture sharing events as well, and videos. I have a lot of things. So it's going to be hopefully a community where not only I communicate with people, but they can communicate with each other. If they went to Expo, share their stories. If they didn't, learn more, even more about it. So that, and also after I get volume two out and have the complete set, this book is geared towards a certain level of English speakers. So there's going to be audio versions, there's going to be Japanese language versions, and also a real Osaka Expo A to Z for children who are just to learn English, study English, or just to tell the story of Expo for a younger child, because that is so important to have children exposed to different cultures and connection and that kind of mindset. So those are some of the things that are in store. And of course, audiobook, I could just read everything myself, but I'm hoping to also put it out where I have two people inhabit the characters of Mickey and Ichiro. So there's a lot I have to do, but one thing at a time. I'm working as fast as I can.
Gotcha, gotcha. That's great. One thing we didn't cover, which I think we need to spend a little bit of time on today, is the workbook. What is the intention of the workbook? Is it geared towards the younger audiences or is it geared towards adults?
When you study a language, I have my Japanese textbooks everywhere, and anybody who studies, when I used to teach English, you always have to have a workbook. That is a way to really further engage the learner, the reader. So, quiz them on what happened in the conversations, how to use the vocabulary more in their daily life by creating sentences or paragraphs, and also just comprehension. What did they mean by this in the book? Find another way of saying it. And for this in particular, like I mentioned, the country connections exercise in every chapter in the workbook deals with the other countries that start with that letter at Expo. So they get a little bit of shine as well, because the only reason I didn't write about them is that there's so much content and I just had to choose. They're no less important than the ones I wrote about. It's just I had to make certain decisions, but I wanted them included somehow. So another good thing about the workbook, it's just a fun thing. People like structured learning.
Do
So
you,
even if, sorry, go
let
ahead.
me, sorry for interrupting here. Do you need to have the book itself to have all the benefits from the workbook, or you can buy it as a separate entity without even the book and it still be useful? Is it
Well,
a package deal or is it a separate thing?
yeah, well, yeah, they really do go together because you can't answer a lot of the questions, whether it's multiple choice or true or false, unless you've actually read the conversations in the book. It's structured the same way, A through Z. They do go together.
Okay.
But another key thing about the workbook, another key exercise, I always include a think and reflect, because again, I'm trying to encourage independent thought, open mindsets. Maybe I'm a little bit too ambitious with this, but there's always something. For example, whatever happens in a chapter, you learned a little bit more about this country. What do you think children or young people in that country have in common with Japan or whoever the reader is, your country? Things like that to make people think a little bit more. The Monaco Pavilion, which is M, dealt with Take Care of Wonder, which was about appreciating the beauty and wonder of nature, and that way you want to care for it and take care of it more. So I asked in the Think and Reflect, just spend a few minutes thinking about when was the last time you felt a sense of wonder. So it's not only go do this and this, it's sometimes just think about this. The book, really, both the book and the workbook, is for, I call it an English language learning book. So yes, it's for that, because Japanese people do study. They're wonderful at studying foreign languages and English especially. So it's for that, and it's tied to this global event that they hosted. But it's for any body studying English. But even if you're not, if you're a native speaker of English, it still has value because you learn about the expo if you didn't go.
Of course. No, of course.
And yeah, so, and the workbook just carries it further because people like to be structured. I do. I think it's great to test my recall by doing the exercises in the workbook.
Yeah, and it's pretty unusual
Yeah,
for a book like that. So it's actually really
yeah,
cool. All right.
yeah.
Well, like I said, thank you very much for your time. And we're going to have all the
You're
links to where
welcome.
people can find you, where they can find the book down below in the comments. We encourage everybody to comment, ask questions. Yvonne does have a limited time, but at the same time, hopefully she'll have time to answer your questions. Yvonne, thank you, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you so much, Oleg, and thank you everyone for listening. And yes, if you do comment when this comes out, I'll definitely try to answer in as timely a fashion as possible. Everybody be healthy, be well. Thank you so much.